Legend of Legaia is a 1998 Sony PlayStation role-playing video game created by Contrail. The game was followed by a 2001 sequel video game, Legaia 2, Duel Saga for the PlayStation 2 which, rather than continuing the first game's storyline, provides an original story set in the eponymous Legaia. Plot: the game takes place in a world called Legaia, populated by humans and objects called Seru, which can join with humans to grant them fantastic powers. While humans and Seru had once peacefully coexisted, about 10 years before the game begins the world was covered in a mist which drove Seru mad when it came in contact with them. Seru were transformed into monsters that attacked humans, and human civilization nearly collapsed. At the time the game begins, human survivors have banded together in remote regions to hide from the mist. The game follows Vaughn, the quiet main hero. No, an excitable feral child. And Gala, a curt warrior monk, on their quest to revive 10 Genesis trees throughout Legaia in an attempt to vanquish the evil mist which covers the world. The three heroes join with entities known as Ra-Seru, which grant them powers like Seru but are immune to the effects of the mist. They travel across 3 continents, reviving Genesis trees that push back the mist over small areas, and destroying the mist generators that create it. At times they come into conflict with Sonji, Gala's childhood rival, who has joined with a Seru and is progressively mutating into a monster. Towards the end of their quest, in the devastated city of Contrail, the heroes manage to travel back in time to locate the origins of the mist to put an end to it once and for all. They discover that the mist was created as a biological weapon by Prince Court, No's brother and the Prince of Contrail. They are unable to save Contrail or No's parents in the past, but when they return to the present they destroy the final mist generator and defeat Court. Unbeknownst to the heroes, however, before dying Court manages to merge with Juggernaut, a Seru that has grown gargantuan through exposure to the mist. The heroes return triumphantly to Vaughn's hometown of Rimelm, but are soon attacked by Sonji and the giant Seru Juggernaut, which devours the entire town and its citizens. After defeating Sonji, the heroes must travel inside Juggernaut to face and defeat Court again. The game ends with the destruction of Juggernaut, the rebirth of Court into a baby, and the ultimate restoration of Rimelm and all its citizens. Characters: Vaughn, voiced by Wataru Takagi, the game's main protagonist who lives in the town of Rimelm, in the far south of Drake Kingdom, along with his young sister Neen and crippled father Val. He has a love interest in the form of Mary, the local seamstress. His weapon of choice is a sword or knife, and his Ra-Seru is Mita which is affiliated with fire. Having grown up sparring with the resident ex-Bayan monk, Tetsu, Vaughn is an adept martial artist. No, voiced by Sachiko Sugawara, a female orphan who has been raised by the Ra-Seru Terra who is a wind elemental. Due to living most of her life alone in Snowdrift Cave with Terra the wolf, No is childish and ignorant as the outside world is new to her. She wants to see the world and meet her parents who call to her in her dreams. She uses claws or tonfa batons to fight. Later in the game, she discovers that she is the daughter of King Nebula and Queen Mani of Contrail. Gala, voiced by Jin Yamanoi, a warrior monk from the Bayan Monastery and the second-in-command and called Master Teacher. He is sent with Vaughn and No to revive the Genesis tree in West Voss Forest, but fails because the Genesis tree has already been killed by the mist. He finds the egg of the Ra-Seru, Uzma, who is affiliated with lightning, and Gala is subsequently excommunicated after it hatches. Gala's weapons of choice are clubs or small axes. In contrast with Vaughn and No, Gala distrusts and greatly dislikes every kind of Seru because of their violent behaviors when affected by the mist and their corrupting any living creature that wears them. Through the course of the game, he starts treating Uzma better, like a close friend, instead of just a tool for fighting the Seru. Prince Court, voiced by Jarata Kosugi, the game's main villain and the boss of Zito, Dahati, Zora, and Jet. He is the son of King Nebula and Queen Mani, and is the older brother of Ra-Seru hero No. Court was contacted by the evil Ra-Seru called Rogue who taught him how to create a mist generator. he later fuses with the Sim Seru called Juggernaut and proceeds to absorb the people of Legaia. Following the Court Juggernaut's defeat, Court is reincarnated as a baby that No takes care of. Court has an assortment of magic, both offensive and defensive, and when in critical health, he will resort to summoning Juggernaut to finish the fight. It is imperative to defeat him quickly at this point. Zito, a master magician who is one of Court's henchmen and the first one that Varn encounters. He is responsible for spreading the accursed mist around Drake Kingdom. He was also the one responsible for using the Juggernaut to bring down the walls of Rimelm so that the mist and the Seru can enter Rimelm. Zito was later responsible for sending the Kyuban monster on No and Terror the Wolf at Mount Rakuroa. Varn and company fight Zito at the first mist generator and defeat him. During the fight, Zito takes the form of a giant crab monster, and summons tidal waves to attack Kshane, a Seru controlling a large monster in the form of a centaur. He is dumb muscle on behalf of Prince Court's crew, laying waste to the town of Octum by destroying pillars which hold to houses over a large chasm. Initially believed to be the result of earthquakes, the party investigates and confronts Kshane down below, where his Seru component shatters shortly after the battle. His battle strategy centers on using his two-turn Tirio punch attack, similar to Zito's water waves. Dahati, a fat and bald wizard who is also a minion of Prince Court. He guarded the second mist generator that's located on the Sebekis Islands. Dahati tricked Lord Saruvateu into wearing a Sim Seru that took over his mind and used him to create a Juggernaut. The good guys fight him at the mist generator and defeat him. His Seru form is a giant green bird creature with venomous breath and high attack power. Gaza, an aged knight and protector of Sol Tower. He journeys alone into the mist to find what is causing it in the lower levels of the city. Gaza is fought twice, once in his regular form, and once after he is taken away by Sonji and possessed by a Sim Seru. He bequeaths his trusty astral sword to Varn after being defeated the second time. Zora, the ruler of the floating fortress in the Kingdom of Sol who guards the third mist generator that's located on Callisto. She initially uses her personal cadre of assassins, the Delilah's siblings, who ultimately fail to kill the party at Nivara Ravine. As opposed to Court's other minions, Zora does not change into a monster, but fights as herself, a thin woman in black with wings. She was at Court's beck and call, thinking that Court had feelings for her. She was crushed to find out that she was being used as a tool the entire time. Sonji then kills her, following him destroying the third mist generator. Zora uses her Dark Typhoon spell liberally in battle but can also use a petrifying glare attack to create problems for slower teams. Jet, Court's assistant who guards the path to the fourth mist generator that's located on Callisto. His Seru form is an armored humanoid. He can create copies of himself in battle and use Shadow Break, a deadly attack to the whole party. Fortunately, this big attack relieves his deception and he can be distinguished from his clones because they will only ever use basic attacks. Sonji, voiced by Takashi Nagasako, Gala's rival and power-hungry fiend. Over the course of the story, Sonji attempts to backstab the other antagonists and obtain greater and greater power. Eventually, however, the power becomes too much for him to bear, as each time he is seen, he becomes more like a monster. Gameplay, combat in Legend of Legaia is turn-based. At the beginning of each turn, the character inputs a command for each available character, selects appropriate targets, and confirms the selection. This initiates the action phase of the turn, during which each character and opponent perform their actions. The order of action is prescribed by each character's speed, status, and equipment. Damage is instituted through the game's tactical arts battle system. Instead of simply selecting a fight command in order to initiate a physical attack, the player specifies the location of each attack. Right and left will strike with the right and left arms, respectively, and high and low strike at their respective heights. Each direction has its own pros and cons, depending upon the opponent, weapons equipped, and level of the character's Ra Seru. For example, equipping boots will increase the power of kicks, but low will not strike a killer bee, since it flies above the ground. To attack, the player creates a string of these directional strikes for each character. As the game progresses, the length of this string or action bar increases, allowing the player to deal more damage each turn. The number of strikes the character can execute is affected by several factors, including level and weapon. Certain weapons can be used by more than one character, such as small axes that can be wielded by both Vaughn and Gala. However, Gala's affiliation with axes are better than Vaughn, so if Vaughn equips the axes, his left attack will occupy more space in the action bar, and thus he cannot make as many attacks overall. Certain strings of attacks initiate combos known as arts, which deal substantially more damage than would a non-combo string of comparable length. The player can uncover each character's arts by experimentation, or through non-player characters throughout the game who reveal arts to the characters. Arts points is necessary to initiate arts, which drain AP in quantities which are proportionate to the length and power of the combo. Inputting an arts sequence without the requisite AP will cause the character to simply perform the string of attacks, without the arts animation or damage bonus. AP can be earned in three ways: dealing physical damage without performing arts, taking damage from opponents, or by foregoing actions for one turn in order to charge up using the spirit command. Arts can also be linked by the last and first inputs. For example, an art that ends with down can linked with another art that starts with down, allowing the player to use two arts in a row costing fewer inputs. The spirit command causes a character to take a defensive stance for a turn, in lieu of attacking. This allows the character to take reduced damage for the turn, increases his/her chance to block an attack, regain AP, and boosting the length of his/her action bar for the next physical attack. Some boss battles involve enemies that do massive damage that the characters can only survive by using spirit. Each main character eventually partners himself or herself with a Ra-Seru, who lends its powers to the human. Once bound, a Ra-Seru strengthens its partner's primary arm for use in combat, and allows the human to absorb the powers of Seru defeated in battle. The human can later use the absorbed Seru's powers as spells. Consistently calling upon that Seru's power will level it up, making it more powerful and causing additional effects. All Seru possess an elemental affinity which determines what type of attacks it will use in battle. Ra-Seru also possess elemental affinities which influence how effective they are in casting spells of various elemental types. Reception: the game received an average score of 77.33% at Game Rankings, based on an aggregate of 23 reviews. References. External links: Legend of Legaia Shrine at RPG Classics, Official Legend of Legaia soundtrack at Blue Laguna.